Domino Thinking presents Natural Born Speakers with your host, Allison Donaghy. If you are born to talk and want to know how to build your career around it, then Natural Born Speakers is the show for you. Now grab your seat because this is the place to be. Now here is your host, Allison.
Hi, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. You are not going to regret it. We have Patty Farmer here talking about connection, collaboration, and conversion. And she has such a great story. I love how she got started as a speaker. And she's coming from New York, and it's pretty blistery and blustery over there, so we may end up hearing some of the storm that's going on. And I am sick on this end, so this is going to turn out to be a really interesting show. Hopefully, Patty will do most of the talking, and you won't have to put up with my voice. Patty is an award-winning marketing and business growth strategist, an international speaker, radio host, event producer, and best-selling author. She's created a network of 100,000 plus Oh man, my brain's not working, not just my voice. She's created a network of 100,000 plus connections and founded BizLink Global. She's the producer of the Marketing, Media, and Money Live event, which will be in 10 cities nationwide in Canada in 2016. And I think she just did one in the States, so hopefully we're going to get to hear about that. She's been featured on the covers of Accomplish, Be the Boss, Unleash Your Bold, and Expertpreneurs. Oh, man, that's totally a word I needed to get today, isn't it? Expertpreneur magazine, and is a social media expert and featured writer for Living the Dream magazine. Welcome, Patty.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to being here, Allison.
Oh, thanks for being here, and I really hope you're doing a better job with your mouth today than I am.
Well, I am a speaker, so talking is good. If you were asking me to write a blog right now, not so much. But if you're asking me to talk, hey, I got it covered.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that because I have been flat on my back sick for a few days. So I'm going to definitely need to tap into your expertise speaking today.
Well, just so you know, I'm not actually in New York. I'm in Dallas.
I knew that, too.
You did know. That's totally okay. I don't want anybody to think that I'm calling in from New York because I'm speaking or something. I'm actually home in Dallas today. We do have hail and storms and rain and all kinds of stuff. So if you hear thunder in the background, all that kind of stuff, this is, not me thundering and lightning. It's actually a storm. But it's okay because we all know that as a speaker, right, it doesn't matter what the weather is. It doesn't matter what happens. It's all about our audience and who we serve. So show must go on, right?
That is so right. So sorry for getting that wrong. And I knew that. I'm planning a trip to New York, so I think I've just got New York on my brain.
You do. I knew that was it, that you have New York on your brain.
Yes, thanks for correcting. So please tell us, how did you get started? How did you end up where you're at? And share.
Sure. So actually, I kind of think that my story of how I became a speaker is actually kind of funny. I hope everybody else does too. But so I've been in business. I've been in the marketing business for over 20 years. So I've been doing what I've been doing, clear back when we still had, old style marketing, so I've been around for a long time, traditional marketing, new marketing, everything, and all the cycles and dips up and down. But one of the things that I really didn't want to do was be a speaker. And which is kind of funny because I've done all kinds of events for years, and I spoke at them, and I did all kinds of speaking when I had a national networking organization. So really, I've always been a speaker, but to me there was a difference, maybe not for other people, but for me, if I was sharing and serving, it was natural for me. Then I was a natural-born speaker. What didn't seem so natural for me, though, was to get up on a stage, put a microphone in my hand, have everybody look at me like, okay, motivate me, right? And I was like, wow, that was like so much pressure. And I didn't think that was something I really wanted to do. But what happened is I kept getting asked to speak, and I kept saying no. I just was like, no, that's not really how I want to serve. And so I didn't think I really want to do it. But then I had a friend who said, Patty, will you please come to Austin and speak? And she made it really sound easy. The group were kind of like people I knew. It was going to be really casual, and I thought, oh, okay, I can do it. So I flew down to Austin. She picked me up, and conniving thing that she is, and she likes to take credit for it now, too, so it's kind of funny. But she picked me up, and on the way to the event, so I flew in the morning, and then we went straight to the event, so I was already dressed to go and everything. So we get there, and she said, oh, Patty, by the way, the person who is going to speak after you, like, they got sick, and so I need you to add 30 minutes to your speech. Now, you have to know, as a speaker, after you've been speaking for a while, like, for me now, that wouldn't even throw me at all. That would be something I'd just take in my stride. But I have to tell you, for somebody who this was my first time speaking, I was like, what? Right? And literally, I was sick all while we drove there. Then we get there, and she goes, oh, by the way, did I tell you that we're going to video it? And you need to wear this mic as well because you're going to be on video the whole time. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then she says, oh, and Patty, you need to make an offer. Now, I'm a kind of a conference junkie. I love going to live events because I'm all about connection, and we'll kind of talk about that later. But really, I love going to events, so I pretty much heard a lot of people make an offer from the stage, and, you know, some people do it well and some not so well, right? And and really, it's an invitation, and so it's really on how you do it. And when she told me that, I was like, are you kidding? I don't have an offer. You know, I mean, I was working with one-on-one clients, and, you know, and I had programs, but really I had just never done it from the stage. So I was pretty freaked out. And I actually, to be totally honest, Allison, I literally got, like, physically ill for real. And then I sat there, and it wasn't my turn, and I didn't hear a thing anybody else said. All I could think about was like, oh, my gosh, how am I going to add 30 minutes to my speech? And what kind of offer am I going to make? And I have to tell you, looking back, it's pretty funny. But I just sat there and thought to myself, okay, Patty, you've been to a million events. Just kind of think about what other people do, and then just speak from your heart. So now it's my turn, and I go up there, and she told me, we'll put up a sign that says 5 minutes when it's almost time. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I have to tell you, to this day, I don't remember a thing about my speech. I don't remember anything. Here's what I do remember, that it seemed like it was 5 minutes when she held up that sign and said there was 5 more minutes. I was like, wow, that was a fast hour. Right. But I remember that people were leaning in and they were laughing, so, you know, obviously I must have been okay. But here's the part that I knew. Was like, now she looked at me, she's like, okay, now you have to do the offer. And I really didn't know what I was going to offer. So I pretty much just, like, now I kind of laugh. And other people, when I've shared this, have kind of laughed too. I pretty much just said something that a speaker would never say, which is, I'm really too busy now to take on clients. I actually said that. I'm really too busy to take on clients now, but I could probably work with like maybe 10 or 15 of you. But this is kind of how it would work. And if you would like that, that would be really great. And I could probably do it for this amount of money. And if you're interested in that, just let me know. But I could really only take, like I said, like 15 people. That was actually how I did the offer, which is like on a scale of 1 to 0, like a 0. I mean, like 1 to 10, it was like a 0, right? I mean, but all I could think about up there was like, I just really wanted to serve, and I could help you, but like I didn't have a formal program to sell from the stage or anything. So it was just kind of like, you know, if you needed me to help you or you wanted me to help you, I could do it, and this is what that would look like. But here's the thing that happened. When I walked off the stage and went to the back of the room to sit down, I said 37 people handed me their credit cards. Said, I want to be one of the 15 as I walked back. And when I sat down, my husband had texted me, and he said, how'd you do? And I said, I don't know. I must have done okay. 37 people handed me their credit card. And he said, really? What are you going to do? And I remember typing in, I'm going to learn to love speaking. And in that moment, I thought to myself, I work so hard. Where in the world do you get an opportunity in an hour to have people there be able to serve them in a way that they would want to continue working with you in an hour? I mean, you just have to really know. Now, obviously, you have to have great content. You have to really be in front of the right audiences. There's a lot of things that have to be put in place for that to happen, right? But I have to tell you, in that moment, I said, you know what? I am going to learn everything there is to know about speaking and how to add that to my marketing strategy. So now you can fast forward 4 years. I travel all over the world. I'll be in 11 countries this year alone. I actually work a lot with marketing for speakers. 80%, there's that big thunder in case you heard that, 80% of my clients are speakers or authors that really want to know how to monetize their business, because I really found when I was doing my research that not a lot of speakers make a lot of money unless they really do get some training, right? So, there's a lot of things to it if you really want to be a professional speaker versus a public speaker, and there's nothing wrong with both of them, but really knowing what the right business model is really, really important. So, my story is a little bit different. I kind of like to say sometimes I became an accidental speaker, but I really, really love it now, and I can't imagine myself doing anything else, and it is pretty much 50% of my business.
Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, God. My phone just went dead, and I'm thinking, what just happened? Apologies.
I was like, where'd you go? Did you not like my story? What? No.
No. Oh, my God. I could sit and listen to that story time and time again. I think it's such a brilliant start, I think. And you have done so much with it, and you've contributed so much to so many.
There's a couple of key points, though, that I think, like on that day, like looking back now, I see that things aligned, right? I just happened to be in the right place, in front of the right audience. I didn't set that up, right? Now, I'd like to give my friend credit that she knew that I was in front of the right audience, right? But for me, I just happened to be in front of the right audience, and I was being authentic, and they saw that and stuff. But now you have to think about it as a strategy. How do you put that into place, right? And I have to tell you, after that, there were some ups and downs as a speaker for me, because once I started learning the craft and I, made the decision, I'm going to really learn this. And I have to tell you that one of my personality traits is it's never okay for me to just be okay or good at something. If I'm going to do something, I always want to be great at it. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I don't even know if that's a strength or a weakness. I just know for me, it's like if you're going to put in the time, you need to be great at it, Patty. So yes. I just decided that that's what I wanted to do. And I started learning, and I have to tell you, I wasn't into that learning process for very long, and I don't know if anybody here in your audience will relate to this, but after a little bit of time, I started thinking, you know what, I'm not sure I'm all that great a speaker. Like, my heart was in the right place, and my content was good. There was never an issue with my content. I kind of have a tendency to over-deliver, and I just really care so much about education and making sure people take actionable steps that I've actually had to learn to not overwhelm people by giving them too much information. So it was never the content. I just really felt like the way I spoke or presented in the very beginning. I went and checked out, a couple organizations, and I just thought, you know what? I started doing what maybe other people do, which is comparing myself to other speakers, which is really something nobody should ever do, because you have your own gifts and your own voice, and you should never compare yourself to anybody else. And I just really thought to myself, wow, I'm just not very eloquent. That's really, it was harsh to myself. And I remember telling my husband, I just am not very eloquent. I'm not an eloquent speaker. I don't know how to make 3 points and take a pregnant pause. And one of the other things I realized is that when I get in front of an audience, I am so tuned into my audience, because I come from a networking world and I'm all about connection, that I am so into them that even though when I practiced my speech over and over and over again, when I learned all these skill sets about how you use your voice and how you turn this, I learned all the things. But what would happen is when I would get up to speak, I would just connect with them, and I could just feel what they needed from me, and I just didn't want to get so caught up in the PowerPoint or what I was speaking about that I wasn't going to give them what I felt like they needed. I wanted to be able to really be able to feel that if they needed me to talk a little bit more on this point, that, I didn't have to go, oh, no, I'm supposed to be going on to this slide now. And so that really, I struggled with that in the beginning. And I had a huge aha moment once, and this was it. And so if there's anybody out there that wants to be a speaker or already is a speaker and you're struggling with this, You don't need to be anybody else. You just need to be you. And here's what I learned. I learned that for me, it wasn't changing me to be more like another speaker. It was for me to speak in front of audiences who need to hear it the way I said it. And I have to tell you, once I had that aha moment, it changed my life and my business. So if you feel like you're not that person in front of that audience, you're just in front of the wrong audience. So the most important tip that I could give somebody who is a speaker or a wannabe speaker is get really clear who your audience is. That's where you need to spend your time. Now, yes, you should be a good presenter. Yes, you should have good content. Yes, you need to hone your craft. All of those things are very, very important. But no matter how good you are at all those things, if you're not in front of the right audience, it doesn't matter. It's just like being on social media. If you're talking and they're not listening, it's noise, right?
Right.
Make sure you're in front of the right audience. That is the number one thing. So I know that some people tell speakers, oh, just go speak in front of anybody while you're honing your craft. I think that there are some things that I agree with on that, and, somebody told me once, oh, Patty, don't wear your first 50 speeches, kind of like the first 50 blogs. Nobody's really listening. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I kind of go with you can only make the first impression once. And then I kind of don't always go with the not perfect. So I think that there's like a whole mix of things that we all hear. You have to find what works for you. What I will say, though, is if you spend your time in front of the right audience and your heart is right and you are showing up with a serve, not sell attitude, and you really connect with your audience, whether you have too many bridge words or you say too many times, people are very forgiving of that when they know you really care about them. So I think that is what is the most important. And then, of course, it all depends on whether you're a keynote speaker or a platform speaker or what business model you're using. Those things matter, too. But I would say get in front of the right audience is probably the number one most important tip I could ever give anybody.
And that totally makes sense. And I think you're probably, I believe that you're correct in what you're saying, that even though you're told that maybe your first 50 presentations don't really count, it's like blogs, nobody's listening, there's still an audience there that you're taking their time, and there's a responsibility to the audience to make sure they're your right audience, whether you're starting out or not. I think it's,
that's right.
And I know I've talked.
It's right. It's not whether you make money. It's not about you. That's like the second tip you have to know. It's not about you. And I have to tell you, I caution my clients about this all the time. Don't read your own press. I mean, I know sometimes, and I have actually seen it a few times, not just with speakers, but with other people too, right, that they get caught up reading their press. It's like, that's marketing, right? You are there to serve always. It is never in bold capital letters about you. It is always about them. And if you are showing up and it's not about them, then it's time for you to either get some coaching or maybe you're not in the right business, because it is not about you ever. It's always about serving them.
Right. So picking the right audience for you is also about them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think, like, going back to your point, I'm sorry?
And about attending as well. Even when you attend conferences and stuff, it's always about, being in the right audience too.
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing worse than going to something you don't want to be at. The energy that's created by that as well, it's disrespectful to the other people in the room and the person on stage, because they end up feeling it, I think. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to go back to your point about just that needing to be who you are when you're up there. And I think, I've talked to a lot of speakers, and that seems to be one of those things that people get so hung up on, like those gremlins in people's heads. All that negative self-talk that nobody wants to hear me. They want to hear, this other person because they're so great. So if I sound more like them, people want to hear me then too. And, well, we already have them in the speaking world. What we don't have is you, and we need you to show up as you.
Exactly. And very well said too, Allison. That is just so true. I mean, there are a lot of speakers who speak on the same topic, but the thing is, if you're if your reason for speaking is that you want to serve, and it's also that you're looking for clients, right?
Right.
If you don't show up as you, then if they do hire you, then really they're not going to be happy because they hired the person that they thought was you. Like, be genuine in who you are so that not only are you delivering good content, but if they see something or they think, wow, I want to know more, I want to get to know you better, or, maybe it's coming in at an entry-level product or whatever the case may be, or maybe it's coaching, whatever the case may be, there is an expectation on both sides here that you are going to show up as who you said you were, right? If you say, work with me and this is who I am and this is what I'm going to do, then that you have an obligation to be able to do that. So the easiest thing to do from the beginning is to just be yourself. Right. And I think that part of that is if you have an issue with that, or if there's some concerns, or maybe you do have some chatter going on from some beliefs that are lingering from, your past or your parents or whatever, I have to tell you, I had some of that myself. That was a huge thing for me. I mean, when I was growing up, there were 5 kids. I was the only entrepreneur in the family. I remember my dad, there were times in my life my dad worked 2 jobs, and my parents didn't really get me. They supported me, but they kind of didn't really understand the entrepreneur spirit that I had, and I pretty much started that entrepreneur journey very, very young, and they didn't always get me. So there were times that my parents would sometimes be like, we don't get it, Patty, like, are you kind of getting a little bit too big for your britches, or who do you think you are that you should be able to write books and people should, they didn't get it. They just didn't get it. I love them, and they're both passed away now. They didn't get it, but every now and then when I got older, and sometimes when I'm thinking about doing something, it still comes up occasionally, and I'll hear my mom's voice, and I'll think, sometimes I had to ask myself, really, Patty, who are you to think that you should do this? But you know what? Here's what I'm going to say. And Kelly Swanson, who is an amazing motivational speaker, she actually had a quote that says, the story you write is the life you live. And I have to tell you, that resonates so much with me. And so I just want to tell people all the time, if you don't like your life, write a new story and make it a bestseller, right? So we all have those limiting beliefs or the things for whatever reason that come up. Could be baggage, could be past relationships, whatever the case may be. You just have to know that whenever you hear that, you need to face that full on, or, maybe you need to get somebody to help you, whatever the case may be. But you have gifts, and there is somebody, probably many somebodies, that needs to hear your story because they have a story too, and they're thinking that they can't tell their story until they hear your story. Mm-hmm. So I just say your mess is your message, right? Tell it and tell it proud.
Excellent. And it's such good advice. And I think, when we talk about people presenting themselves as somebody else, the audience has one of 2 ways to go. Either they're going to believe you because you are so damn good at pretending, and then, like you say, they're going to find out that you're not who you claim to be, or people are going to tell that you're not being authentic and want nothing to do with you anyway. So there is no upside to that whole pretending. And if you're so good at pretending to be somebody else, you're probably even better at being you. So just show up, right, as you.
Exactly.
And I think getting to your point, too, about your parents and how they saw your entrepreneurship, it's I went through the same things with my parents when I started my company, and they're like, well, that's a nice little business. Maybe you should just get a real job someday soon. and I have a great life, and I've done great things that I never would have been able to do had I been working for somebody else. There is just no way. And I never would have been happy doing that either. And it took me a long time to realize that when my parents would say that to me, it wasn't to stop me so much as they were just concerned about how well I would do.
They want to protect you and love you. And They think that they're helping us, but the road of entrepreneurship in itself is not an easy road, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in itself. And then to decide to do it publicly and be a speaker, that's even harder in some ways.
Yeah.
And now, it is an amazing marketing strategy, and a lot of times it's just because somebody has a message, right? And you need to use your voice. I mean, how many times is that? I told somebody once, and I have to tell you, I haven't shared it from the stage yet, mostly because I'm still not quite sure how deep I want to go into it. It'll be the right time. But I will tell you, one of the things that I remember when I was growing up is I truly believe with all my heart that we have a voice, right? We all have a voice. And, today it's International Women's Day, so I really love to say use your voice and change the world, right? But I'm going to tell you, I remember when I was growing up, I was called Chatty Patty. And I can remember my parents saying, Patty, if you could just be quiet for 30 minutes, we'll give you $5. If you could just be quiet for 30 minutes, we'll give you $5. And I have to tell you, I never got the $5. Not ever once. Not ever one time. And that's funny, but the flip side of that, I don't know how you're getting me to tell all these stories here, but the flip side of that is 25 years later, actually like more 30 years later, and I remember when my mom was in hospice, and I was spending time with her at the very, very end, and my sister was taking a break, and she's like, just talk to her. The doctor just says, talk, she can hear you. And I'm talking and talking and talking, and it's kind of hard to keep going on and on, you're not getting any feedback, right? And all of a sudden, she turned, like she woke up, she turned and she said, you know what, honey? She said, if you could ever get anybody to pay you to speak, I think you'll have finally found your career. That's the last thing my mom ever said to me before she passed away. And I think it's so funny that, 30 years later, she was paying me to be quiet, right? To be quiet. And I just really kind of, you never know, right? And so I think that don't let anybody else stand in your way. We want to serve, and if that is what you want to do, then you should just do it. So I love this natural-born speaker because, some of us are natural-born speakers, whether we realize we are or not. Some of us may have to work at it a little bit more, and it may not seem so natural. But the bottom line really honestly is that we all have a voice, and there is some gift, our zone of genius, whatever that is that you have, that nobody can say or do the way you do it. And there are people out there that need to hear that message because it is going to change their life. It's the transformation that you can help them to do. And every time I sometimes think, every now and then, I still to this day, every now and then if I'm walking out on a stage, I'll think, oh my gosh, I'm a little nervous, or, maybe I'm slightly intimidated from other speakers that are coming. I'm like, oh wow, they're a phenomenal speaker. Every now and then it comes and haunts me still a little bit. And always I just have to say and take a moment and just say, there's somebody in that audience that I need to touch. Just let me show up and say the words they need to hear and let me be of service. That's all you really can do. And just know that it's your voice helping somebody else. And I think that is the one thing that quiets the fear, is that I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for them.
Yes. Well, and that keeps, I think, focusing on that one person that's out there keeps that connection when you're up on the stage as well. If you're trying to speak to, a crowd of 1,000 or 10,000 or 100, doesn't matter. It's very difficult to keep connection with that many people. But if you're connecting with that one person, whoever it may be, that needs to hear your story, then you're connecting with all of them just by the natural fact that you're connecting with one.
Absolutely. I think that the thing that happens is that speaking is still a business, though, right? And so you have to balance that every day, right? And so I have always said that the moment I ever thought I wasn't doing it for the right reasons would be the day I'll stop doing it, right? And so I think it's really important. And because I am in the marketing business, right, for me, I understand marketing, I understand strategy, and so I understand about press too, right? So I never read my own press. I just really want to make sure that I'm always doing it for the right reasons. But with that said, as a speaker, there are times that I get on a plane, I'm away from my family, right? I make the choice to get on a plane and leave my family. I'm away from them. There's times that I'm gone for days, right? Sometimes when I'm out of the country, I could be gone for a week, right? And it is a business, too. So there are decisions that have to be made as to, why you would leave your family for a week, right? It is a business. This is my business, too. So the thing is, you do have to balance that, too. So there are things that you do need to be strategic about. There are choices you have to make in where you spend your time, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to make sure that you do that, too, so that you're just not running all over the place. And I do know that I work with speakers that's what they do, that they are all over the place. They're like, I spoke here, and I spoke here, and I go to this, and I go to this, and I go to this, and I'm not profitable, right? Because they don't have a strategy, and they don't treat it, or not that they don't treat it like a business, but they don't always make the decisions, mostly because they just haven't been taught to do that. Like, you have your business, but then speaking is a business as well. It is a marketing strategy, but for some people, that is their business. I mean, there are a lot of speakers that are professional speakers, and that is their business. That is what they do. They don't have something else, right? They're not using speaking as a marketing strategy for their primary business. That is their business. So, there's a lot of different ways, and people have to do it differently and be able to make business decisions as well as a speaker.
Right. How do you make those choices? How do you decide what is going to work for what you're going to say yes to and what you're not going to say yes to?
That's really a good question, Allison. That's a good question. For me, I finally realized, now I'm going to tell you, my first year of speaking, oh my goodness, I was all over the place. Remember how I just shared how I became like an accidental speaker? Here's how I accidentally became an international speaker. How I accidentally became an international speaker is I was asked to speak, and I was going away, and I was speaking, and the day before I left, I got a phone call, and a friend of mine said, Patty, I'm in London, and I'm speaking over here, and there's a girl that's going to be speaking on the second day, and she just got appendicitis, and they had to take her to the hospital, and we no longer have a speaker on this topic. Is there any way you can get over here and fill in? And I'm thinking, what? But I thought about it, and I said, wow, what a great opportunity. So I'm going to tell you what that one decision did for me was I left Dallas, went and spoke, then went to Canada and spoke, then flew from Canada to London, got like 5 hours sleep, think of the jet lag, got 5 hours sleep, spoke, and then after I spoke, 4 hours later, I had to get back on a plane because I had to get back here because in 13 hours, I had to leave to go speak in Florida. So I had to pack my bag for Florida because it's totally different weather. I came home and had 13 hours, and then I was leaving for Florida. Now, I'm going to tell you, that week was like I didn't see a thing of London besides driving to the resort and then going back home. But when I spoke in London, I got booked for 2 other speaking engagements.
Wow.
And that right there, that one decision of going, oh my gosh, this isn't a perfect scenario, right? But when I got asked, I just said, opened my mouth and said yes. Don't know how we're going to make that happen, but I'm going to do it. I kind of didn't get a whole lot of sleep, but I did it. But I have to tell you, that is how I became an international speaker. So I have to tell you, sometimes some people would just say, oh, you got lucky. I don't know. Is that luck, or was it just that I said yes when maybe somebody else would have said no? I don't know. We'll never know. All I know is that was 3.5 years ago, and now, a huge part of my business is that I spend a lot of time out of the country speaking. So I have to tell you, that changed my business. So now, to come back to that, before that, I was just all over the place. And finally, I just really realized that at the end of the year, I thought to myself, okay, let me look back at all those speaking engagements and see, was it profitable? Whether it was a paid speaking engagement, not a paid speaking engagement, like how did I, through follow-up and, doing the right things, did it become profitable for me or not? So I looked at all those things. I analyzed and I realized, you know what, Patty? I just had to talk to myself. It was just like this. I'm going to tell you, Allison. It was like, girl, you need to have a criteria because you're just, but here's the thing. here's how I work. This is just, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but whenever I'm afraid to do something or I'm nervous about something, but it's something I want to do, here's how I deal with that. People ask me to do it, and I just say yes, because my integrity is that if I say yes, I will do it. So sometimes I have had to be up at midnight getting things done to make it happen, but I have just learned, say yes, and then figure out how to do it. Now, I'm not saying that's the way to do it, but that is how I got over that fear. So now I said, you need a criteria. So here, to get back to the question now, here is how I do it. So I actually talk about this in my speeches, but I actually have I actually have a handout, and if anybody wants it and they want to reach out to me, I'll be more than happy to give it to them. I have a handout, and pretty much it looks like a table, and I say this is my advisory table. And what happens, and the reason why it's a table, is every time an opportunity comes to the table, it has to fit this criteria. And so it's a 4-legged table. So in one leg for me, and it'll be different for everybody else, but for me, here's my criteria. 1, it has to either be a speaking opportunity. Is it a speaking opportunity to an audience that I want to speak in front of? Like, is it my audience, right? So that's the first one. Second one, from a marketing standpoint, is this a marketing opportunity for me from that point of view, right? From the third point of view, is it that I am serving a community that I really believe in and I want to serve them? You know, is it something like that I really love? Like, is it in a location that I really like? Like, there's certain things that I really love, right? I don't know if you know this about me, but I have 6 daughters, 1 son, and 13 grandchildren. None of them live here in Dallas. So for me, I love it when I get to speak in places where one of my children are, so I can visit them. So that always works for me. And the last one is it something that just speaks to my heart? Like, sometimes you don't always have to have a reason. Somebody will come to me, it's an opportunity, and I just want to serve, right? You know, it just speaks to me. So as long as it does one of those things, it's a yes. And if it doesn't, no matter what, it needs to be no. And whatever that criteria is for you, and really that's kind of a shortened version. There really is a longer version for that. But the reality is you do need to have a criteria, otherwise you will be all over the place. And you need to know, if it's a business for you, you need to know how are you going to be compensated. You know, you really do need to know that. How are you going to be compensated? We don't always get compensated with money. I mean, I always like to say, people will say, well, do you speak for free? I never speak for free. Now, will I waive my fee? Yes. You know, if certain things happen, I'm more than willing to waive my fee. But am I a free speaker? Never. And I always encourage all my clients, you never speak for free, right? And I know in the beginning people say that. There are many, many ways to be paid, not always with money. That's a whole other conversation. But I always make sure I want to tell speakers all the time, there is definitely something there that you need to learn. And so I want you to know that I think that that is really important. So I had a business, and I had to say, okay, how much % of my marketing business am I willing to have be towards speaking? And if I do it and I'm not making money, like how much of that am I taking away from what I do, like from my marketing business, right? And that I'm spending time away from my family. So there's a lot of different decisions for that. There's actually some formulas that I use to work on that, but it is a decision-making process, and I just really feel like when people decide they want to speak, they need to know why. Right. It's kind of like when you have your business, right? Why do you want to speak? Are you speaking because you have a message? You don't care if you ever get paid, right? You just have a message you want to get out, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong. Are you speaking because it's part of your business? Right? You know, is it your business? Is it that you just want to have a speaking business? Like, what is it? Is it a marketing strategy as part of your business? So you need to get very, very clear on what that is first so that you can make the right decisions. And that's kind of the business part of it, but you still have to be in front of the right audiences, and it really does need to be about being of service. So It's a big, huge circle, right?
It is, yeah. It's and it makes so much sense when you say it because you've lived it and you've experienced it and you've had all that time in to consider all of those things that matter into that decision-making process. So thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Now on to our topic, because as much as I could just listen to you talk all day long, we should probably get on point here about connection, collaborating, and conversion. And I know we have been still touching on it. Yeah, but I wanted to break it down really clearly for our listeners and have you explain exactly what that means to you.
Okay, sure. So connection, collaboration, and conversion, those are like the three things. It's actually my tagline, but it's really the three important things that I believe doesn't really matter what your business is, but especially for speaking. There is a point in time where you make that first connection, right? So whether you're speaking at an event or maybe you're at an event where there's other speakers, or maybe it's that your audience, the audience are the perfect audience for you to get speaking engagements, right? So it may not always be an audience of potential clients. It could be that it's an audience of potential clients that may book you for speaking. So those are two different things, right?
Right.
I always kind of chuckle sometimes to myself. Every now and then I'll hear a speaker say, I never attend events anymore unless I'm speaking. If I'm not speaking, I really feel that as a speaker, I shouldn't attend events that I'm not speaking at. And I'm thinking that was kind of part of reading your own press. Again, I'm going to tell you, you need to be attending events even if you're not speaking, if the audience is full of people that will help you get speaking engagements, right? So again, it always comes back to audience. But again, to go back to the point of connection. So you need to know that there's going to be that moment of connection. When you do, and you are in a room with the right audience, so it always starts with that, what do you do to move it along? Because here's the thing. You're going to meet a lot of people, and I'm going to tell you, there have been times that I have spoken at events and had one time 161 people ask me to go have coffee, virtual or in person. Now,
Wow.
It doesn't matter how free my time was. I don't have time to go have coffee with 161 people, right?
No.
So you really have to know how to have a conversation. And I never say that I'm qualifying anybody. My goal is to continue the conversation until people pretty much disqualify themselves, right?
Right.
But the goal is always to continue the conversation. That's always the goal. Continue the conversation. And I always like to continue the conversation until I find synergy. Like, what is the next step for us? And so for me, that is about asking better questions, right? You need to ask questions. So that leads us to my first tip, which is no matter what type of conference, workshop, networking event, whatever the case may be that you're going to, you need to be able to go, and instead of thinking about what you want to talk to everybody about to sell, instead think about how you're going to show up and serve. What kind of questions can you ask that are going to help you get the answers that you need to move the conversation forward, right? And who is going to be that audience? So that's important. You need to know what's your goal. I never attend anything or do anything that I don't already know what is the outcome. Like, you can't always determine what the results are going to be. It's not always in your control, but you can control what you do. So you just need to know, why am I doing this? What's the reason I said yes to this interview? What's the reason you showed up and said you'd speak at this conference? Why are you attending this conference? All of those things. Why are you going to this networking meeting? Right? You need to know, why are you doing it and what is your goal? So that's the number one thing. You have to be really, really clear. I think the next thing that's really important is what's your follow-up strategy. You should never speak at or attend anything that you don't already know and have in place a follow-up strategy before you even get there. Like my follow-up strategy when I go to events, I already have my autoresponders, I already have my follow-up. Whatever I'm going to do is already in place. So when I come home and now I'm tired because I've been away for 3 days, it's already in place. I already know what I'm going to do because I took it in consideration before I said yes. Like, I already know, why am I going?
That is so important to have that pre-planned. Like, that is such a great tip, because when you get back from some of these things, you have work to catch up on that you missed while you were attending these things. And it's so easy to just sort of get back into that, I have to get this finished and I have to get this finished, that you then end up forgetting about reconnecting.
Exactly.
So that's really great advice.
I'd like to say, ultimately, 48 hours you should follow up with people within 48 hours is the ideal scenario. It doesn't always happen, but ideally, that's what I would say. I mean, sometimes you're going from one event to another event, right, or something, and so it can't always happen. Now, if you have a follow-up strategy and you knew you were going to go to another event from one event and you had your follow-up strategy in place, you may even be able to automate some of that. So, or whatever the case may be, right? So there are ways that you actually can do that. I mean, there have been times that, well, I always believe in doing everything in person, right? I'm not really a big automator myself. However, there have been times when I have had conversations with people and, I have told them, normally I follow up within 48 hours and I would really love to follow up and continue this conversation. I am going to be at another event next week. I'm not going to be able to follow up with you for about a week, but I just want to let you know that I plan on doing it. So just tell them that, and that way they know, oh, wow, that's really great. And then just reference that when you follow up with them a week later. So there's many things that you can do with that, just because I know people always want to know examples. Say that I'm speaking, and I know that I'm going to go to another event, and I'm not, and say from the stage, I said, I will give you a copy of my handouts, or, if you would like a copy of my slides. The slides, a lot of times people like that. And I will say, I'm more than happy to be able to do that. I already have that in place, and I'll usually say, if that is something that you're interested in, just give me your business card, let me know, whatever the case may be. And then I'm putting that together while I'm on the plane, or I already have it in place, and all I have to do is pop those things in, and while I'm on the way to the next thing, they're already getting something from me that says, here's those slides that I promised you. I'm now in New York City or whatever the case may be, and I would love to personally follow up with you with a phone call next week, what's convenient for you, and, here's my link to connect or whatever the case may be. But I did what I said, and that kind of leads to another really important point, which is whatever you say you're going to do, make sure you do it, because that's the thing that's going to hold you accountable, right? If you say you can't do it to next week, well, that's fine. They get it as long as you do it. Whatever you say you're going to do, make sure that you do it. Your integrity is on the line then. Okay, so that's kind of the connecting part. Do you have any questions about that before I move on to the collaboration?
No, let's just move right along. We're down to about 15 minutes here, and I still want to hear what you have
I'm not in front of a clock. Oh, good. I'm really glad that you told me that. I'm normally on in front of a clock, but the puppies are kind of still the storm thing going on here.
Yeah, there's that.
Isn't it great that as a speaker and as a business owner that you can have your puppies in your lap and still be working? I love it.
You can't do that in a corporate job.
That's right. Entrepreneurial life is beautiful. Okay, so collaboration. So one of the things for me when I'm thinking about my questions is that I'm always looking for collaborative partners, right? I'm always looking on, I always like to say there's a quote that says that it takes a village to raise a child. I like to say that if it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a tribe to build a business. So you need to make sure that you're always building your tribe, right? You can't do it alone, you just can't not and have your business, have massive success. So if you're just looking about making, a little bit of money, okay, maybe you can do it by yourself. But if you really want to be successful in your business, whatever success means to you, and it means different things to different people, you just have to know that you're not going to be able to do it by yourself. And whether that means outsourcing or whether that means collaboration, whatever it is for you, just know that, being able to duplicate your time works, right? Yeah. So I'm always looking at that. I'm always looking everywhere I go. Am I going to meet somebody that has a skill set that might be a great add-on to my business? I'm always looking about serving my clients. And so, like, for example, I don't do web design, and I'm not a graphic designer either. However, most people, when they are my clients, may need some of that, right? And so for me, I am always looking to meet people who provide a service that my clients may need that I do not provide. So for me, that's always a great collaborative opportunity for me. And so I have questions in place and conversation for that. So that is something that I'm always looking for, right? Because that is always about serving the clients you already have. And as a sidebar from that really quick, I just want you to know that a lot of times, my specialty is list building and building community. Those are the things that I'm the most known for. But I'm going to tell you that it doesn't end when you get them to hire you or to opt into your list. So I just want you to know the most important marketing strategy you're ever going to have is a stick strategy. And that is what is so important. And what that means, in case somebody doesn't know, a stick strategy is what happens after they opt in. Like, how do you get them to stay? It's not just about getting them. Like, what are you going to do to serve them? What value, what relevant value are you going to give them that's going to make them want to stay? It takes a lot more work to get a new client than it does to retain one you already have, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about that, you always need to take that into consideration when you're thinking about collaboration too, right? So that is a really good tip there. So in case anybody didn't write that down, you want to make sure that you're thinking about that, because when you're collaborating
Thank God this
is
recorded. They can go back and listen.
Oh, that's right. That's good. Good job. That's good. I know, and I love that too. So I think that's really important. So when you're thinking about collaborating, when you're going, you want to ask yourself, okay, so what are the things I'm looking for? So I'll just give everybody an example for collaboration. So I may go to an event and I'm thinking, okay, what are my goals for this event? I see who the audience is, right? I always want to know who the audience is, whether I'm speaking or attending.
Right.
I may say, okay, I want somebody who does video. I'd like to be introduced to somebody who does this. So I have goals to meet of what I am looking for. It could be that I'm looking for speaking engagements. It could be that I'm looking for guests for my radio show. I mean, there could be many things that I'm looking for. It could be that I have a project that I'm working on and I'm looking for JV partners, right? It could be any of those things. When I walk in to an event, when I'm walking in thinking about that and how that serves my client, I'm not really thinking about me then, am I? I'm thinking about being of service. Yep. And so I think that changes the conversation you will have with anybody. It's really a good opportunity when people want to talk to you when you're talking about your business or their business, and you're saying, oh, yeah, I'm really looking to be introduced to a graphic designer. They'll say, oh, I really know a good graphic designer. Or you might be able to say, what was your number one reason that you chose to come to this event? And they may say something that you didn't even know, right? You're like, oh, wow, that's really great. So there's a lot of different conversation that you can have that will actually help that along. So when you're thinking about collaborating, any of those ones that I said can help you continue the conversation and can be profitable to your business.
Right.
So know what those are.
To conversion.
Yes, and it's not always the number one thing is never, always, is there anybody, really, is there anybody who isn't looking for a client? Everybody would like to have a client,
in some way,
right?
shape, or form, for sure.
Exactly. So that's just a given, right? Mm-hmm. But you just have to know when you think about it. Just imagine this in your mind. If you're going to an event and you know there's going to be 150 people there, and now you're getting dressed, you're putting makeup on, you're doing your hair and whatever, how many of those 150 people do you think are thinking to themselves, wow, I can't wait to go to this event. There's going to be 150 people there, and I can't wait to hear all the things that those people have to sell me. Nobody. Nobody's thinking that. What? But I'm going to tell you, if you're really honest, when you're looking in the mirror and you're doing your hair and your makeup, are you not thinking in your mind, oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell them about this new product? You are thinking about what you're going to do. How would that ever be a win? Mm-hmm. Never. But if you just change the conversation, so it's a mindset shift, but it's a mindset shift that results in increased conversion. That means bottom line. If you go into that event and you have a different goal, and if you say, I am looking to have conversation with 5 people, and I'm looking for 5 guests for my radio show, I am looking to be introduced to somebody that could possibly lead me to 2 more speaking engagements this year. I am looking for somebody to introduce me. I'm going to be in Canada, and I would like, while I'm going to be at this speaking gig, for them to introduce me to somebody else that while I'm there I could get a second speaking gig. I'm looking for, be specific in what it is that you're looking for, and then your conversation will follow.
Right.
Instead of just having somebody come up to you and say something ridiculous, like, so what do you do? Right? We all want to have 150 of those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But, okay, before we run out of time, I know there's so much more to say on this, and people can find you at, what's your website address?
PattyFarmer.com, and Patty's with a Y, so PattyFarmer.com.
All right, and it will be available. I'll put it up on my Facebook page, and you can get more information from Patty by contacting her there. But Patty has so many things going on as well. Would you want to share those with us? Because I know Canada is part of it, and I'm super excited to have you up here. So let's take the last 5 minutes here and hear all about what you have going on and how people can find you and how brilliant you are, all that stuff.
Oh, please. Thank you so much, Allison. So all my social media will be on my website, so if you just go to pattyfarmer.com, you'll see all that. Please feel free to connect. Even though most people think I'm on Facebook the most, really, my favorite is Twitter. I am on Facebook a lot, but I really love Twitter, and that's Patty Farmer. You can pretty much find me everywhere as Patty Farmer. But what I have going on right now that I'm the most excited about right now is I am doing a one-day, 10-city tour called the Marketing, Media, and Money Tour. So we're going to be in 8 cities in the United States and 2 in Canada over the next year, and I'm really excited. So this was a way that I could give back. This is kind of my give back tour where I really wanted to do something a little bit differently and spend one day up close and personal. So this is pretty much like a day of no pitching. We're really only going to have one other speaker besides me. You're going to get to be up close and personal with me. We have an open mic, so you get to ask me anything you want for some on-spot coaching right there. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do. And really, this isn't going to be so much of me being on a stage teaching, although I do that a lot. But this really is going to be, I want to make sure that everybody in the audience walks away with something that they're going to put into place there while they're at that event. And it's really, really important to me. So marketing, media, and money, I'm really excited about this up close and personal tour. So we're going to be, so for cities, we already did Dallas a few weeks ago.
I heard it was a huge success.
Yes, it was. It was very, very exciting. I really loved it. We are going to be in Houston, San Diego, San Francisco, Denver, Las Vegas. We're going to be in Florida, and then we're going to be in Toronto, and we are going to be in Vancouver.
I'm super excited about that one. Although I
and not necessarily in that order either. Right now, we are looking at venues right now. Really, what I'm looking at is, since it's kind of like a one-year tour, we are really looking at weather, making sure that we set it up that we're in the right cities during the right weather.
Yes.
So
now's not a good time for Vancouver.
Now is not. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not. It's just rainy.
Yeah, so I'm really looking for that. So I would just say if your audience is speakers, right, if your audience there is speakers, yes. So we are doing some, even though we're having one speaker in everyone, we are having a panel. So if there's anybody that has a message that kind of resonates with marketing, media, or money, and that is yours, please reach out to me. We are looking for those people in those cities, or if somebody wants to host it or would like to be involved in any way, I would really love to have a conversation. So I really invite that. I picked those cities for a reason. I already have communities in most of them already, but I really, this is really kind of exciting for me, so please feel free to reach out. And then the last thing I really want to say is my radio show, The Networking CEO, which we've been doing for like 3 years, but has been on hiatus for the last 3 months because of the tour. Actually, you're the first person to know, so I'm going to kind of announce it on your show,
Yay.
Which is that we will be back in just a couple weeks with a new name, and the new name will be the Marketing, Media, and Money Show. So we can talk about those 3 topics. So we started the tour first. That will be the radio show too, and in very short time, we're actually going to have a magazine as well. So lots of exciting things on the Marketing, Media, and Money.
And where do they find your radio show?
Excuse me?
Where do they find your radio show?
Well, they will find the radio show as soon as I announce it. Just stay tuned, looking at my social media. Actually, the Networking CEO is another Twitter name besides Patty Farmer, which is my radio show. So if you actually just connected there, Networking CEO as well, we'll do a name change there to the new to the new name. So in the next 2 weeks, you'll see it all across social media everywhere. You're just kind of getting an advance notice that it's coming.
Yay.
So the tour, after the year, we will be doing a 3-day live event once a year. So that's kind of exciting too. So it's kind of a whole year-long movement, but with the magazine, the radio show, the tour, it's very, very exciting. And I just, this is a great opportunity for me to be able to collaborate with people all across the United States and in Canada too.
Oh, well, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show. And you're involved with so many things, and you do them all so very well. It's a great example to the rest of us about what we can learn about getting focused and getting clear and really understanding how we show up best. So thank you so much for being on my show, Patty.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to it. I really adore you. And,
and right back
anything I can do. I hope you feel better, too. I hope you really feel better.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for being so patient with me on the show today, because it's been a struggle, but you just carry everything so very well. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and we will stay in touch. And for you listeners out there, until next Thursday, speak up, because you have something to say and we want to hear it.
Thanks for hanging out with Natural Born Speakers. But don't stop now. Contact Allison with questions to be a guest or hire her as a speaker. Go to dominothinking.com. See you same place and time next week.